Hello and welcome to Up the Villa podcast. If you're new, please subscribe. You'll help us grow massively and we'll hit a like target of 80. So we come in a bit later than normal. I was umming and ahhing whether to do this video, but I thought we've covered the Euros, so we've got to go for it. So England lost the final of the Euros on penalties. Bitterly disappointed. We started the game fantastic. Shaw's finish was incredible. We had Italy on the ropes for around 20, 25 minutes. And for me, it was classic England and classic Croatia of the semi-final at the World Cup. The game just mirrored it for me to a T. We just sat too deep. We invited so much pressure towards the end of the first half. You were just seeing Verratti picking it up in space, piling on the pressure. They had all of the ball and then they came out and did more of the same. We had no answers for it, really. I've been pretty mixed with Southgate, negative to start with, warm to it. And then yesterday's performance has now put a little bit of a downer on it for me. I don't want to put all of the blame on Southgate, but I just think that some of the things that happened in that game could have been avoidable and lessons haven't been learned from that semi-final, which you would think a few years later we would start to see lessons being learned for us to go in the direction and to win something, basically. So bringing Justin, what were your thoughts, mate?
Oh, where do you begin, really? What a roller coaster of a few weeks we've had. Again, from the start, it was a bit, we was anti-Southgate, not anti-Southgate, frustrated with Southgate. I'll say that, frustrated with how we started the tournament. First three games, we all knew our love of Jack probably overtook our love of England a little bit blinded by that. But like you say, I think we all sort of had to really just admire that he stuck to his guns and he had a plan. And ultimately, that plan took us within a couple of penalties from winning it, didn't it? So, I don't want to hang him out to dry, utterly hang him out to dry. But, and it's a huge but, I just don't see him as the man to win a trophy for us. And that might sound a bit daft because, like I've just said, within a couple of penalties of actually winning one. But I think it's because of his style and the way he sets it up and his approach to these games that ultimately is what cost us yesterday in the game, wasn't it? I think you say we started pretty well. Was all really chuffed after 20 minutes getting the early goal. I felt we had to score first against Italy to sort of have a chance because of the way they defend. So that sort of bedded us in really nicely to the game. Then we dominated, didn't we? I thought Rice was absolutely outstanding in that first half. I know he petered off towards the end of the first half, but he just run the show. Shaw was excellent. Kane's hold-up play was really good. And then at half time, I think we all knew what was going to happen. Mancini was obviously annoyed with probably how it went, so he had to come up with a different plan to counter what we were doing. And unfortunately, Southgate decided just to stick at 1-0. That's how it looked to me. He just thought that, 1-0, we would just see it out and win it 1-0. And we wasn't playing Denmark, was we, like we did in the last game? He did exactly the same, albeit later on. He did it at half-time in extra time after getting the lead. And we had to hold out for 15 minutes in extra time. He took Jack off, obviously, and he went to 5 at the back and he defended it. But Denmark, Italy aren't Denmark, are they? They've been the best team in the tournament. I think we've all seen that. So to try and hold out in a final for half a game, it's just not the way I'd want to do it. I'd rather go out trying to win a game than trying not to lose it. And it was a bit like watching Steve Bruce, wasn't it? Steve Bruce's Villa, just a bit negative, a bit ploddy, and his use of substitutions, I think, in this tournament have been very questionable. I think the Italians have used 4 or 5 subs in every single game, and they're not afraid to take their best players off either. They took Verratti off, Insigne off. I know, what's the lad who played on the left? He's been the best player of the tournament. Chiesa. I know he was injured, but they didn't fluster him, did it? They just carried on. I don't really know the players that came off the bench, but they didn't look any worse, did they? But his reticence to take off. I mean, Sterling's been good in this tournament. He's had his ups and downs, but I don't think he did a hell of a lot yesterday. He kept running down blind alleys again. I thought Mason Mount was atrocious. I just don't know. I don't know what he sees in Mason Mount, to be honest. 90 minutes, 100 minutes, wasn't it? He was on the pitch for. And Kane, or did he have one touch in the box for the whole game? There's big question marks, isn't there, about a lot of the things. I mean, I've just watched the press conference and he said he's going to go to the World Cup next year if he's sort of allowed to. What do you think? Do you think he's the man to carry on? I mean, would you be happy with him going to the World Cup?
I think the problem we've got is that we've got another golden generation of players, haven't we, that are very young. And I just don't see Gareth Southgate taking the handbrake off and doing what Mancini's done. Italy didn't qualify for the last World Cup. He's changed the style of play of Italy because they don't play this free-flowing football. You know, they've never done that. And that's what England should be doing. And it worried me because I said in the preview that it's okay playing 5 at the back, 3 at the back. 3 at the back worked for the first 20 minutes. You could see that it worked perfectly. The game plan was brilliant.
Because the fullbacks were bombing on.
Yeah, but the minute you become under pressure against a very, very good team, that ends up being 7 or 8 at the back. And that's what we saw yesterday. And we were sat through that for around, say, 60 minutes watching the 6 or 7 at the back just not work. And I feel like he could see that. And that's why I alluded to the Croatia. The game had ran away from us and we just weren't forward thinking enough. And I just worry that from this group of players that we've got, it's going to be wasted. We saw Phil Foden, the poster boy of the tournament. He started the first game and that was it. Jack Grealish, phenomenal player. He's only started 1 game in this tournament. He comes on to try and save the day every single time. And he's better than that. Jackie's better than that.
He is, yeah.
And it's just a worry that we were reluctant to be so stagnated within the way that we're playing. And it's just a little bit of a worry. So my answer is I'm just not sure. I think we will never get a better chance of winning a tournament than what we've just had in our own country. Fair play to Italy because they've gone and won that tournament at Wembley in front of all those England fans. So, you know, massive respect to them and the way that they've gone about this tournament. But there are a lot of questions and I think, you know, they're warranted to be asked. I mean, I can't get my head around why Saka was the 5th penalty taker. That's the worst one for me. I can understand like Sancho coming on and having one and maybe Rashford because they're good penalty takers. But to put all that pressure on Saka at his young age and Southgate knows what a penalty miss can do to somebody, I just think it was such a bad decision to give it Saka. What did you make of the penalties?
Just quickly on Southgate one, I do worry that we're going to become the new Belgium. I mean, we've known about this Belgium team for a long time now, how good they are, and they flatter deceive in all these major tournaments. And for me, it's the same reason that I'm hoping that England won't, but probably England are, is because the manager isn't up to the standard of the players. And, you know, it was always a weird appointment, Martinez going to Belgium, as much as I think it was a bit of a weird appointment, Southgate, albeit he got the job sort of by default. So that worries me really. On the penalties are a tough one, aren't they? I mean, you know, as England fans, we are well averse, aren't we, to watching a penalty shootout fail. Southgate took the blame for it. He said that it was his decision to choose the 5 takers. Now, I think everybody's been poring over all the video footage, haven't they? Have him walking around with his little bit of paper, working out who's doing what and where. And I would imagine after what he said after the World Cup last year, because he did manage to end that hoodoo, didn't he, by winning it, that this is something they have spoken a lot about in this build-up to the whole tournament, and I would think throughout the whole tournament. So I would say the plans were pretty much set in stone of who would be a penalty taker or one of the 5, whoever was left on the pitch. I mean, they've had a rough idea he would have a rough idea who was going to be on the pitch roughly at the end, wouldn't he? And yeah, I think you can stick the 19-year-old thing at it. I do understand that one, but I think somebody's put on today how many penalties, you know, the 11 that was on the pitch at the end had taken, and take out Kane and Rashford, I think, and there's not a lot of experienced penalty takers there. A lot of them have never taken one. So I played at a really terrible level, that Sunday League level, but I always played up front, and whenever there was a penalty, I always felt it was my responsibility to take it, because that's your role, isn't it? If you play up front, you're a goal scorer, so you should give anybody who's a goal scorer a free shot on goal just with the keeper. And at that level, professional level, you'd fancy your chances, wouldn't you? So I would say that Saka, Sancho, Rashford, especially Kane, they would all fancy themselves, But the problem is replicating a penalty in that environment with that pressure, and that's where I think the age thing comes into it. That maybe I think was it Sterling's got an awful record, hasn't he? I think he's taken 5 in his career and he's missed 3 of them. So I can sort of see why he probably wasn't going to stick his hand up, but. It's a tough one. I think once you get to penalties, you're in the madhouse, aren't you? And anything can happen. And it's such a shame that anybody has to miss one. But recriminations about who should have and shouldn't have, I think we've seen what's happened with the racist abuse as well today. And it's just an awful situation to end up in, isn't it? And this is why I'm frustrated with the manager, because I think we shouldn't have been in that situation. We've got good enough players to have won that game in 90 minutes.
Yeah, we could have won that game 110%. I feel we were more than good enough to do so. So we'll end our Euro coverage there. It's been really good covering it. It's been more ups than downs, better than classic England anyway. So so we'll finish it off there. But obviously back to the main event now. Close the Euro channel down and bring back up the Villa podcast. Justin, what are you feeling? Excited?
I'm excited, so excited for the new season. With everything that's going on down the club, I think the shirts, the new kit should be coming out any minute now. I think they've waited till after the Euros so they can give it a real blast out for the fans. The pre-season friendlies have been announced. I'll be down to Bescott as usual, providing we're allowed to. I presume we will be allowed to with the things that are changing next week. I'm buzzing for it. Can't wait to go back. It's what we live and breathe, isn't it? Especially with season tickets now being bought, stadium's going to be packed again. We just want that news about Jack signing a new contract, which I'm very, very, very hopeful now will happen. A couple more signings in the front door. We've got the world's best goalkeeper already. It's just, we're in for an absolute brilliant season. I'm so buzzing for next season, getting back to Villa Park and then talking about it every week. It's great with you lot. It's just fantastic. Can't wait.
Cool. Right, so I'll end it there. So if you like the content, give it a like, subscribe, and thanks for watching us. Up the Villa and up the England.
Up the Villa.